Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 34. This venerable one falls out of favor. Only Chu Wanning could say such a shocking sentence so calmly. All three disciples heard it and each had a different emotion in their hearts. Xuemeng thought was the simplest, with only one exclamation, ah. Mo Ran's feelings were a little more complicated. He remembered something in his previous life. He held his chin and thought that he didn't want to see Chu Wanning's third weapon again in this life. As for Shimei, he tilted his head, with a pair of misty apricot blossom eyes, a faint luster flashing in them. It seemed to be worship, but also fascination. Did you get Tianwen from Jinchinj Lake? Chu Wanning, MMM. Then the other two. Chu Wanning answered one of them, yes. The other isn't. The weapons are usually not too strong and can be controlled, so you don't need to worry too much. Xuemeng sighed enviously, I really want to see Shizun's other two divine weapons. Chu Wanning said, for most things, Tianwen is usually enough to deal with it. The other two I would rather they never be used. Xuemeng reluctantly hummed, but light still flashed in his eyes. Chu Wanning looked into his eyes and knew that his cultivation spirit was extremely difficult to suppress. Fortunately, Xuemeng didn't have a bad heart. With a little guidance, he didn't need to worry too much. Mo Ran, who was next to him, stroked his chin, quietly contemplating. It was known that these weapons were lethal, and cultivators had no choice but to use them. Chu Wanning. Regardless of whether it was in the past or at present, he was above this notion of righteousness. It was written in every book that evil does not triumph over the righteous, but this fool takes it very seriously. He deserves to be talented and exceptional, but he is still end up as his prisoner, destined to become nothing more than bones in the grave. Shizun. Shimei's voice interrupted Mo Ran's thoughts. I heard that there are hundreds of people who go to the Dawning Peak every year to seek a divine weapon, but only one or two people have the ability to melt Jinchinj Lake, and some of them they have not even get the chance to see the water in the lake for several years. My cultivation is weak, it doesn't seem possible for me to do it. Aran and Young Master are both among the best in the world. Maybe I shouldn't go. I can stay here and practice more basic techniques. Chu Wanning. He didn't speak. His fine porcelain face was surrounded by a faint mist. He seemed to be deep in thought. In the previous life, Shimei gave up the opportunity to go to Dawning Peak because of his low self-esteem. When Mo Ran noticed it this time, he immediately smiled and said, just go and give it a try. If you can't do it, think of it as a field trip. You're on Shizun Peak all the time. Sometimes, you have to go out and experience the world. Shimei grew even more anxious. No, my cultivation base is too weak. There are so many people who goes to Dawning Peak. If I run into disciples from other sects and they ask me to spar, there's no way I'll be able to beat them. I'll only bring shame to Shizun. Chu Wanning raised his eyebrow. Why are you afraid of this? It was a strange question. He asked it seriously, but it also seemed like a rhetorical question. The other two didn't notice it, but Shimei felt a chill grip his heart. He raised his eyes and faced Chu Wanning's sharp gaze. Shizun. Chu Wanning's face remained expressionless as he said, you specialize in healing, so naturally you aren't good with sparring with others. If someone asked you, just say no. There's no shame in that. Mo Ran also grinned, don't be afraid, Shimei. You've got me. And so, all three of them packed up and set off. On this journey through the upper cultivation world, the path was long and riding a horse was too tiring. Chu Wanning still didn't like flying with the sword, so they used a horse-drawn carriage and slowly traveled for more than 10 days before finally arriving at a town next to Dawning Peak. The three disciples all got out of the carriage and Chu Wanning was the only one still too lazy to move. He lifted the bamboo curtain in the carriage and said, we'll rest here for the night. Tomorrow, we will walk a little further and we'll be able to reach Dawning Peak. The city where they stopped was called Daecheng. Although the city wasn't very large, it was very rich and prosperous. The women were draped in green cloth and the men wore brocade hats and silk shirts. It was slightly more luxurious than even the most extravagant places in the lower cultivation world. Xuemeng spat, "These dogs in the upper cultivation world, while the rich people wine and dine, the poor people die of cold by the side of the road." Mo Ran also wasn't happy with it. It was rare for him not to refute Xuemeng. With a sweet and sly smile, he mocked the scene in front of him. "Yes, it makes me so jealous. No wonder so many people are rushing to move to the upper cultivation realm. Even if they don't cultivate immortality, being an ordinary person here is still much better than living in the lower cultivation world." Chu Wanning pulled out a silver gray mask and put it on his face. He slowly got out of the carriage and looked at the hustle and bustle of the surrounding city, but no one knew what he was thinking. Xuemeng wondered, "Shizun, why are you wearing a mask?" Chu Wanning said, "This is the Linyi Rufeng sect's territory. I can't show my face." Seeing that Xuemeng was still puzzled, Mo Ran sighed, "Little Phoenix doesn't have a brain. Shizun used to be guest master at Linyi Rufeng sect." When he said this, Xuemeng remembered this fact, but the proud son of heaven was unwilling to admit that he had forgotten it. He blushed, rolled his eyes, and said, "Oh, of course I know this, I was just wondering. He was just a guest. It's not like he was sold to them. He can leave whenever he wants. Is someone from the Linyi Rufeng sect going to try and kidnap Shizun if they see him or what?" Mo Ran said, "You really are stupid. Haven't you ever heard? After Shizun left the Linyi Rufeng sect, very few people in the upper cultivation world knew his whereabouts. When we go down the mountain to eliminate demons, if anyone asks about what sect we're from, don't we all just say we're from Shizhung Peak and not mention who our Shizun is?" Xuemeng froze for a moment and then he realized, "So your whereabouts are unknown in the upper cultivation world? But Shizun is so powerful, why should you hide your whereabouts?" "I didn't deliberately try to hide it, but I also don't want to be disturbed." Chu Wanning said, "Let's go. We'll stay in an inn." "Hey, are you four gentlemen looking for a room?" The inn's assistant manager ran over with a sly face. Xuemeng said, "We'd like to take 4 rooms." The assistant manager rubbed his hands and smiled, "I'm so sorry, sir. The thing is, the number of rooms in Daecheng has been a little tight recently. There aren't 4 rooms available. How do you feel about sharing rooms? Will 2 rooms do?" They had no other option. They just make do with it. It's just that there was a small problem that appeared when deciding who got what room. "I want to share a room with Shimei," Mo Ran declared as the 3 disciples came together while Chu Wanning was paying. Xuemeng pushed back, "Why?" Mo Ran pondered, "Don't you like to stick to your Shizun?" Well, I don't want to." He respects Chu Wanning very much, but the word "awe" could also be interchanged with fear. Whether he loves Chu Wanning more or fear him more, he couldn't say. Seeing Xuemeng's flushed face, Mo Ran smiled teasingly, "Brother, I think it's not that you don't want to sleep with Shizun, but you wouldn't dare to, right?" Xuemeng's eyes widened. "It's not like Shizun is going to eat me. Why wouldn't I dare?" "Oh," Mo Ran said with a smile, "but Shizun is good at hitting people in his dreams. Did you know that?" Xuemeng. His face turns blue. Xuemeng suddenly thought of something and angrily questioned, "How did you know what Shizun is like when he's asleep? Have you slept with him?" This statement was a bit ambiguous, although Xuemeng didn't meant anything bad by it. He might not have had any ill intentions, but anyone else listening would definitely hear it the wrong way. Mo Ran secretly thought to himself, "Not only have I slept with him, this venerable has also slept with him in my previous life." But a real man doesn't boast about his past conquests, so he just continued smiling, "It doesn't matter whether you believe me or not. You'll get to experience it tonight." Remember to bring a bottle of medicine. You can use it for the bruises. Shuemeng was about to throw a fit when Chu Wanning finished paying the bill and walked over. He gave them a faint glance and said, "Let's go." The three youngsters followed their Shizun upstairs in a line. When they stood in front of one of the rooms, the three of them who had originally been arguing all turned to look enthusiastically, waiting for Chu Wanning to speak. In fact, their argument just now had been all in vain. When they actually reached the rooms, they were all silent and waited for their Shizun to speak. Chu Wanning paused and said, "There are only 2 rooms, which one of you?" He hesitated, a little embarrassed. What should he say? "Who wants to be with me?" It sounded a little pathetic. It was really not Elder Yuhang's style. So what should he say? "Mo Weiyu, you come with me." Like that? Forget it. The 2 of them were like a spiked club and a tiger skin. They were no different from the Black Wind village owner who robbed the young woman of the good family. He was a grand master anyway, so he needs to save some face. Not to mention that, since they had fallen asleep in each other's arms in Red Lotus Pavilion, the 2 of them had been very embarrassed and rarely spent time alone together. Chu Wanning looked indifferent and calm, but countless thoughts rolled through his mind. After a long time, he finally lifted his chin coldly and nodded towards Shuemeng. "Shuemeng and I will share a room." Shuemeng. Mo Ran had been smiling, but at this moment, he was stunned. He had hoped that Shuemeng and Chu Wanning would room together, and he could room with Shimei. But when this choice came out from Chu Wanning's mouth, he inexplicably felt a little disappointed. He didn't realize, but he looked very much like a little wild dog who didn't know the way of the world. The little wild dog met a man who was not very nice to him, but always willing to throw him some bones to chew 3 times a day. But the little wild dog doesn't like this rough man, so, although he gnawed on the bones every day, he licked his paws and barked at him. He refused to accept this man as his master. However, he didn't know why. One day, this man came out with a bowl, but instead of the familiar bones, it was filled with grain. A beautiful bird with bright feathers flew down and perched on the man's shoulders. Its eyes stared at him and its crystal beak touched his face affectionately. The man also turned his eyes at the bird. He touched the luxurious wings of the bird and carefully fed him the grain. He, a wild dog, couldn't help but felt cold. After all, he thought that Chu Wanning would choose him. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 35. This venerable one slips. That night, Mo Ran stared at the wall, hand in cheek. On the other side of the wall was Chu Wanning and Shuemeng's room. Shimei liked cleanliness, so he had left a change of clothes folded neatly on the bed and gone downstairs to ask the attendant to bring up hot water for bathing. The walls of the inn weren't very thick. When it's quiet, he could faintly hear the sounds from the adjacent room. Chu Wanning seemed to have said something, he couldn't hear clearly, but he heard Shuemeng's voice loud and clear. Seems a little tight. Mo Ran's ears stood up like that of a dog's, wiggling a little. Across the wall, the little phoenix said, "Shizun, does it hurt?" "It's fine, you can keep going," was the answer. "I'll be gentle, let me know if it hurts." "You talk too much. Do it or don't." Mo Ran's eyes widened in alarm. Surely, there's no way there's something between those two, but what kind of exchange was this? What are they doing? The pup's ear was practically pressed against the wall. There was a faint sound of clothes rustling, and if he strained hard enough, he could hear Chu Wanning's stifled groans. He heard Chu Wanning make this kind of sound in bed countless times before. That Shizun of him didn't like to make any noise when it felt really good or really painful, always biting down hard on his lower lips as unshed tears gathered in his eyes. At that time, all he had to do was push a little bit harder to rip soft pants of breaths from his throat. Wait, Chu Wanning's voice was low and rough, "Don't touch there." "All right," Shuemeng hesitated, then said in a small voice, "Then." Shizun will do it himself. MN. Where? What nonsense is this? Don't touch where? Do it himself? Just what are they doing? Mo Ran's entire face darkened. By the time he realized what he was doing, he had already knocked on the neighboring door. A flurry of rushing noises came from inside. Pup's expression grew even darker. He raised his voice, Shizun, what are you? The door opened with a creak. Xuemeng stood there, fully dressed, hands still holding a piece of blood-stained gauze. He narrowed his eyes as he glared at Mo Ran with puzzlement. What do you want? Making such a ruckus this late at night? Did you trip over a ghost or something? Mo Ran's mouth opened and closed stupidly. He glanced at Xuemeng to where Chu Wanning sitting by the table with medicinal salve and fresh bandages on it. What were you? Xuemeng continued glaring. Applying medicine, of course. Shizun's shoulder injury hasn't healed yet. The bandages had not been changed for a few days and some of the wounds got infected again. Mo Ran. He asked dumbly, then what was too tight? Too tight? Xuemeng thought of a while, brows drawn together. Oh, the bandages. They were wrapped too tightly before, some bits got stuck to the wounds with blood and almost wouldn't come off. He stopped talking suddenly and glanced at Mo Ran with suspicion. You were eavesdropping. Mo Ran rolled his eyes and scrambled to save his sorry face. Who's eavesdropping? The walls here are so thin you can hear breathing sound if you lean against them. Go see for yourself if you don't believe me. Oh, really? Xuemeng nodded, but then a moment later he felt like something was off. Wait, how do you know that? Were you leaning against the wall to listen? Mo Ran. Xuemeng angrily exclaimed, Mo Weiyu, you are so weird. Mo Ran just as angry retorted, who knows what beastly things you might do to Shizun. Xuemeng was a pure person who knew nothing of such matters. He had no idea what Mo Ran was even on about, so he only got angrier. What nonsense are you yapping about? Then turned to complain, Shizun, he. Chu Wanning put on his outer robe, holding it closed with one hand while straightening out his hair with the other as he calmly walked over and looked Mo Ran up and down. Did you need something? I heard, Mo Ran fumbled for words. That stuff, so I thought Xuemeng was bullying you. What? Chu Wanning didn't understand at all, his eyes narrowing. Who's bullying me? Mo Ran wanted to slap himself. They were in the middle of staring awkwardly at one another when Shimei came upstairs. Ran? What are you doing outside Shizun's room? Mo Ran stammered. There was a misunderstanding. Shimei smiled. Well, has it been resolved? Yeah. Mo Ran said hurriedly, Shimei, didn't you go ask the attendant for hot water? Shizun probably hasn't bathed yet either. I'll go ask them to bring extra. Shimei said, no need. He took out 4 bamboo tablets, smiling. The attendant said there's a natural hot spring by the inn which the innkeeper built into a bath. These tablets are passes. I got one for everyone. Mo Ran thought that he, a cut sleeve, probably shouldn't go soak in the hot spring with the other 3. Xuemeng was whatever. Shimei was pure and divine in his eyes and he dared not even think any dirty thoughts about him. But Chu Wanning, he was well aware from a couple of times of close contact they had since coming back from the past that he'd probably lose his mind if he saw that person undress. Mo Ran covered his face with a hand. I'll pass. Xuemeng said shocked, you don't bathe before bed? Gross. Mo Ran said, I'll ask the attendant to send some hot water up. Shimei was baffled, they don't boil hot water here since all the guests go to the hot spring. Mo Ran. Having no other choice, Mo Ran could only grab a change of clothing and go to the hot spring with everyone else. This inn was pretty diligent at currying favor. It knew well the most people who come to stay are cultivators headed to Jinjinj Lake hopeful for a weapon, and so named the bath Daybreak's reflection in Jinjinj to invite some luck. Moran was scared stiff of losing his sense and dared not even touch the other two. He changed in a rush, wrapping the towel tightly around his waist, and ran off by himself to the hot spring to find a secluded spot. It was already rather late, so there weren't many people in the bath. The ones who were there were scattered distantly. With a square of white towel on top of his head, Moran sank into the water, leaving only half of his face above, and let out a breath, blowing bubbles in the water. The first person to finish changing strode out with long, bare legs. Moran snuck a glance and let out a breath of relief. Thank the gods it was only Xue Meng. Xue Gongzi may be handsome, but he wasn't Taxian Jun's type no matter how you cut it. Their gazes met and Xue Meng pointed at him. You, stay away from me. What gives? You're dirty. Moran, he. The bath was misty with water vapor. After a while, Xue Meng paused in the middle of scrubbing himself to call out, Shizun, over here. Moran, with half his face underwater, nearly choked. He knew damn well that he shouldn't look, but his gaze still couldn't help wandering over. That single glance nearly killed him. He was so startled that he swallowed 2 whole mouthfuls of bath water and didn't even have the time to be grossed out, hurrying instead to sink even deeper into the water until only his eyes were above the water. He totally didn't expect Chu Wanning and Shi Mei to come out together. Shi Mei was slender and a soft sort of beauty, with long ink black hair draped over his shoulders and wrapped in a towel. By all rights, Moran should have wanted to sneak a look at him the most, but his glance darted quickly past him. He truly respects Shi Mei like the moon above and dared not stare at him in public. Chu Wanning, on the other hand, was tall and coldly handsome, with broad shoulders and a narrow waist, toned body, and firm skin. He had his hair up in a high ponytail and wore a large bathrobe that covered his whole body except for the front, where it was too wide to be pulled close and revealed a large expanse of smooth, firm chest. Staring at him, Moran felt like he was going to suffocate and boil in the water. He wanted to look away, but his traitorous eyes refused to listen, and his gaze fixed itself there, without moving even a slightest bit. His ears slowly turning red. Across the heavy mist, Chu Wanning seemed to have glanced at him, or perhaps not. He put a layer of waterproofing barrier over his bandages and stepped into the water. His legs could be seen between the floating robes, long and slender, balanced with tight contours. Moran. He really couldn't take it anymore, closing his eyes and sinking all the way into the water. Even covered by the towel wrapped around his waist, his reaction was really too. Moran felt extremely wronged. He really didn't like Chu Wanning, he truly hated Chu Wanning. But his body remembered their fervent love-making, those frenzied intertwinements that could turn even bones of steel into tenderness, and all of the absurd things between the two of them that made his face redden and his heart race. The jut of his throat bobbed as a celestial war raged within him. Moran was really about to cry. It was the first time in his life that he loathed himself so. Why was he like this? Shi Mei was right there. What the fuck was he doing losing his damn mind over Chu Wanning? Even if they had pressed together skin to skin as they entwined in the previous life, it was all in the past. No matter how hung up he was over Chu Wanning's body, how could he do this to Shi Mei? This was too disrespectful to him. He deserved better. Moran lowered his head and focused on dispelling those wicked thoughts for quite a long while before finally managing to suppress the fire in his abdomen. He burst out of the water and shook off the droplets, wiped his face with the towel and opened his misty eyes. And came face to face with Chu Wanning. Even worse, the water he had just shaken off all splashed right onto Chu Wanning's face. He watched as a droplet leisurely made its way down into his sharp black eyebrow and then slowly slid lower, nearly about to get into that beautiful phoenix eye. Chu Wanning. Moran. This was truly the worst. He couldn't see the surroundings earlier when he was submerged underwater holding his breath. Chu Wanning also had no idea Mo Ran was underwater here and was just minding his own business, coming over here to fetch a box of fragrance bars. He didn't even get the bars before he got splashed with a faceful of water. The hot spring was quite deep, the buoyancy of the water strong. With his head spinning, Mo Ran tried to back away but ended up slipping and falling right into Chu Wanning's arms instead. Mo Ran, Chu Wanning. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 36. This venerable one has probably lost his mind. Without thinking, Chu Wanning reached out to steady him. As the two of them stood pressed against each other in the warm spring water, Mo Ran felt a spark go through his entire body, goosebumps crawling up his skin. Even though he'd already held a near-naked Chu Wanning at the Red Lotus Pavilion back then, the circumstances at the time had been dire. There wasn't any time to dwell on the situation, so he hadn't thought much about it. But right now, with one hand against Chu Wanning's chest and the other unconsciously supporting his Shizun's waist, their legs tangled together under the water with the hot spring making their skin feel warmer and more slippery, Mo Ran's brain exploded entirely. To Chu Wanning. Without even doing anything but touching the other's waist. His body reacted with the intensity of a rushing river. Shizun, As he frantically tried to get up and run away, his red-hot lower parts made contact with the other person in the struggle. Chu Wanning's eyes suddenly widened. His beautiful face stricken with horror, and he backed away immediately. At the same time, the droplet of water that had been clinging to his eyelashes dripped down into his eyes. He grew more and more agitated, squeezing his eyes shut and rubbing at them, but he didn't have a bath towel to wipe the water with. Shizun, use mine. Mo Ran's face burned red, mortified to absolute death. Still trying his best to pretend that nothing was wrong. He used his own towel to wipe the water droplets off of Chu Wanning's face for him. When Chu Wanning finally opened his phoenix eyes again, he still had a baffled look of distress on his face, a hint of panic underneath. But it only lasted for a moment before he quickly forced himself to calm down. He pretended he hadn't felt anything at all and said hoarsely, "The fragrance bar, pass one to me." Oh, okay. Mo Ran walked sideways like a crab stiffly to the edge of the pool and picked up the box of fragrance bar sitting on the bank. What scent does Shizun want? Whatever. Mo Ran's head swam in a daze. Staring blankly into the box for a long time, he turned back and said sincerely, "There's no scent here called whatever. Chu Wanning sighed heavily, "Plum blossom, Haetang." Okay. Mo Ran took 2 fragrance bar and handed them to Chu Wanning. As soon as their fingertips touched, there was another burst of tremors. No matter how badly he wanted to, it was impossible to shake off all those memories from the past. If this was in the past, he'd already be fervently tangled with him at the side of the pool by now. A vision appeared unbidden before his eyes, of Chu Wanning half kneeling on the ground as he endured his fiery, ferocious passions, eyes half-lidded and body trembling uncontrollably as Mo Ran took him, screwed him hard until climax washed over him. Mo Ran was unable to stand it anymore. Those carnal desires made his eyes see red. He didn't dare to look at Chu Wanning at all. He felt that even looking at Shimei right now would be safer than looking at Chu Wanning. How could this be? How could this happen? He quickly finished washing himself, and taking advantage of the fact that the other 3 were still soaking in the pool, Mo Ran said some vague words to the effect of him being sleepy and that he'd turn in first. Once he got back to his room, he bolted and locked the door. Mo Ran couldn't take it anymore and moved to relieve himself. He didn't want to think about Chu Wanning's appearance at a time like this. He'd even rather soil Shimei's pure image. At least that would be easier for his confused heart to accept. But neither his body nor his mind wanted to listen, and every sight that flashed before his eyes was that of him and Chu Wanning in the past, neck to neck as they sought pleasure in one another. It was like the floodgates had opened tonight. All those torrid memories came rushing back into his mind in a frenzy along with wave after wave of trembles. He treated himself almost roughly, as though he was on top of that man's body and on the very edge of ruin. He threw his head back as if he refused to accept it. Yet, his breaths came out in muddled gasps and pants. He breathed out the name without realizing it. Wanning. Calling this name, he let out a stifled grunt, trembling slightly as he came without holding back, covering his palm in sticky wetness. Once he finished, Moran leaned to rest his forehead against the cold wall. His eyes were awash with confusion. Shame. Guilt. Loathing. Arousal. He never expected he still have such strong reactions to Chu Wanning even after being reborn. He was suddenly filled with disgust towards himself. Since he never attained Shimei in his past life, he vented all his passion into other frivolous relationships. But even though he vented all his passion into other frivolous relationships, even though he made it seem like passionate love, it didn't really mean anything to him. After the candlelight was extinguished, it was all just sex. All the same no matter who it was with. Even the way his heart moved towards Rongju was just because he bore some resemblance to Shimei. But the kinds of feelings he had toward Chu Wanning were completely different. He realized as he thought about it harder that even though they weren't doing anything sexual, the intense pleasure he got from it was unlike anything he was ever able to feel with any prostitutes. It wasn't just physical and he refused to dwell more on it. He was in love with Shimei, always had been and always will be. His feelings absolutely wouldn't change. After repeating this to himself a few times, Moran calmly slowed his breathing, frowned and then squeezed his eyes shut. He felt anxious, annoyed and aggrieved all at once. He didn't want this. In matters of lust, he couldn't help but think about Chu Wanning. When the lust subsided, he didn't want to think about Chu Wanning anymore, whether it was the hair on his head or the look in his eyes. He frantically thought to himself, almost to the point of paranoia, that the one he likes, the one he loves deeply, is Shimei. Chu Wanning's mind was in the same state of turmoil. He had unexpectedly seen and moreover, felt Moran's desire. The young man's body was already quite mature, already much too overwhelming, hard and so hot as to be scalding when excited, like hot iron waiting to be forged. Even though Chu Wanning quickly schooled his face into a blank calm and refused to bring anything up afterwards, the encounter had made his head go numb and filled him with disbelief. To make matters worse, his own body had reacted too. Fortunately, he had a thin face and so always wore a bathrobe even in hot springs. It covered his whole body and no one saw anything. Otherwise, he would really not be able to show his face again. But why would Moran? As he lay in bed that night, he ruminated quietly for hours. He dared not even imagine that maybe, Moran also liked him. That kind of thought was entirely too delusional and shameful. Even the cautious thought of maybe Moran also likes, the word me didn't even have time to surface in his mind before Chu Wanning furiously pinched himself. That pair of clear, bright phoenix eyes flickered as if trying to hide his thoughts. He didn't even dare entertain the whole idea. Besides, his personality was cold. He was quick to hit people. His words were harsh and he had a bad temper. He was nowhere near as beautiful as Shimei in appearance, and not to mention, he was not young anymore. Even if Moran liked men, he wouldn't be blind enough to like him. On the outside, he was aloof and haughty. But the truth was that he'd been treated coldly by others for so long, had been feared for so long, that as he walked this long and lonely road, his opinion of himself has slowly crumbled into dust. When they woke up the next day, Moran and Chu Wanning met in the hallway of the inn, both holding secrets in their hearts. They looked at each other but neither deigned to speak first. In the end, it was Moran who first carried on as if all was normal. He smiled towards Chu Wanning and called out Shizun. Chu Wanning was relieved. He really didn't know how to deal with this situation. Seeing as Mo Ran chose not to mention anything that happened yesterday, he was perfectly willing to go along with it. He nodded once, lightly. Since we're already up, we should wake up Shimei as well. After packing up quickly, we can depart for Dawning Peak. Dawning Peak was covered in snow all year round and therefore it's exceedingly cold there. Even for a cultivator, it would be difficult to endure such frigid weather. Chu Wanning went to the tailor to buy winter cloaks and gloves for the disciples so they could wear them when the temperature dropped. The shopkeeper smoked her pipe and smiled, lips drawn up in a bright red while welcoming customers. When he saw Mo Ran, she said, "What a handsome young fellow. Look at this black cape with a golden dragon on it, the embroidery is of the highest quality. You see the light in its eyes? It took me more than 3 months to complete it." Mo Ran gave an embarrassed laugh. "Mrs. Words are very sweet, but I'm just going into the mountains to seek a weapon. There's no need for me to wear something so formal and ornate." Seeing that this prospect failed, the shopkeeper instead turned to Shimei. "Oh, this young prince is beautiful beyond compare, even more lovely than the most beautiful girl in the city. Sir, if you would allow me, this red butterfly and peony cloak would suit you perfectly. How about you give it a try?" Shimei forced a smile. "Miss, aren't those women's clothes?" Xuemeng hated shopping for clothes, so he refused to come along and just waited in one place. Chu Wanning chose a black cloak with a purple lining for him, with white rabbits embroidered around the brim. The shopkeeper said, "Sir, this cloak is a bit small for you. It would be better suited for a teenager." "It's for my disciple," Chu Wanning said expressionlessly. Oh. The shopkeeper realized her mistake and quickly smiled. What a great teacher. It may have been the first time Chu Wanning had been ever called a great teacher. He went still and his face betrayed nothing, but his steps were out of sync when he walked away with arm and leg on the same side moving together for quite a few steps. In the end, Mo Ran chose a light grey cloak. Shimei a moonlit white one and Chu Wanning a plain white one with dark purple lining. After they had made their purchases, they went back to Xuemeng. When Xuemeng saw his cloak, his eyes widened. "What is it?" Chu Wanning said, not understanding his reaction. "It is nothing." When Chu Wanning walked far enough away that Xuemeng thought he couldn't hear, he looked at the lining of the cloak and muttered, "Purple. I don't like purple." He didn't expect to hear Chu Wanning's voice saying coldly, "So much nonsense. If you won't wear it, you can climb up naked." Xuemeng. They leisurely traveled to the end of the road and the four of them reached the foot of Dawning Peak before nightfall. Dawning Peak was rich in spiritual power and home to many beasts and monsters. Even cultivators would not dare to rush in carelessly unless they were significantly strong. Since Chu Wanning was there though, they didn't have to worry about things like that. Chu Wanning conjured 3 hatang petals from thin air, giving them spirit-repelling properties and tucking them into the waist sashes of his 3 disciples. "Let's go," he said. Mo Ran looked out at the peaks hidden in the night sky, like a huge ancient beast crouching deadly still, and a myriad of emotions poured into his heart. In the past, it was on Dawning Peak where he declared to the sun and moon, ghost and demons, that Mo Ran was not satisfied with the current cultivation world and would instate himself as the new ruler. It was the same year in which, at Dawning Peak, he had taken a wife and a concubine. He still remembered the face of that wife, Song Kayutong, an unparalleled beauty. From certain angles, she looked very much like Shimei. He was not a person who cared much for etiquette or honor, and didn't even bother with those tedious rites of marriage. At that time, he just took Song Kayutong's delicate hand, pulled the red-veiled woman up a flight of thousands of stairs, and they walked for over an hour. Eventually, Song Kayutong's feet hurt too much to walk. Mo Ran had a bad temper, he lifted her veil and was about to yell at her. But under the light of the moon, Song Kayutong's sorrowful eyes made her look just like that person who had long since passed. The angry words died in his mouth, and after drawing a shaky breath, he finally said, "Shimei, I'll carry you." In terms of seniority, if Song Kayutong had been in his sect, she would indeed have been his shimei. So, she only paused slightly at this kind of address, reasoning that since Mo Ran had wiped out the entire Rufeng sect, it was naturally now a part of Shi's Hung Peak. That being the case, it wasn't wrong for him to call him shimei, so she just smiled and said, okay. And so for the last several thousand steps, Taxian Jun, Emperor of the mortal realm, ruler of the shadows, steadily, one foot in front of the other, carried his red-adorned bride to the peak. He lowered his head and watched their oddly shaped shadows moving on the ground, overlapping with each other. He laughed a little and said through a dry throat, "Shimei, I'm the Emperor of the mortal realm now. From this day on, no one will be able to hurt you." The woman on his back didn't know what to say to this, hesitated a little and finally said, "MMM." The voice was soft. Perhaps because it was too soft, it was hard to distinguish it as a feminine voice and the tone was vague. Not a soul could see Mo Ran's face as his eyes grew red. He murmured, "I'm sorry, I've kept you waiting for this day too long." Song Kayutong thought that Mo Ran was saying he'd had feelings for her for a long time, so she replied softly, "Husband." This woman's voice was clear and crisp, like morning dew, pleasing to hear, but Mo Ran's feet suddenly slammed into a halt. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." As they started to walk again, Mo Ran's voice grew firm again and lost its hoarseness. After a pause he said, "In the future, it's better if you call me A Ran." Song Kayutong was caught off guard and didn't quite dare to call Taxian Jun this. "Husband this. I'm afraid." Mo Ran's voice grew harsh and violent. "If you don't listen, I'll throw you off of this mountain." A Ran." Song Kayutong quickly changed her speech. "A Ran, I was wrong." Mo Ran said nothing else. He lowered his head again, silently walking forward. The shadows on the ground were still just shadows. Looking back at it, it was easy to see that it, really, was just a shadow. The rose-tinted things he'd wanted to see were all fake. In the end, what he had was nothing more than an illusion. It was all in vain. "Shimei. MN." The person walking beside Mo Ran turned his head and asked. The sounds of shifting leaves, rustling grass and the light of the moon, all reflected onto this person's face. "A Ran, what is it? Are you tired from walking?" Mo Ran glanced at Chu Wanning and Xuemeng who were walking in front of them and whispered, "If you are tired, how about I give you a piggyback ride?" Before Shimei could reply, Chu Wanning turned his head to look back at them. He glared coldly at Mo Ran and said, "Are Shi Mingjing's leg broken? Does he need you to carry him?" "Shizun," Shimei said hurriedly, "A Ran was just joking, don't be angry." Chu Wanning frowned, eyebrows drawing together into a severe expression. "Ridiculous. What do I have to be angry about?" Mo Ran. "Shimei. Shizun seems mad." "You know how he is," Mo Ran whispered into Shimei's ear. "His own heart is smaller than a needle tip, cold-blooded and ruthless. Can't even stand to see other people doing good things for their peers." He wrinkled his nose and lowered his voice even further, concluding, "Seriously, the worst." Suddenly, Chu Wanning's voice rang out from in front of them. "Mo Weiyu, if you say one more word, you'll find yourself thrown down the mountain." Mo Ran silenced himself as if in obedience but secretly grinned over at Shimei and mouthed, "See, what did I say?" End chapter.